You're listening to the Build a Better Business series from the More Than More podcast. We're here to share the tools and strategies you need to journey from survival to significance with your leads, team, systems, and money. Let's get started.
So I've heard it said that you don't rise or raise to the level of your expectations or goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. Have you heard that
I
quote?
believe I've heard you say that before, yeah.
You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. The other version of it is you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your training.
Okay.
We're not here to talk about training. We're here to talk about systems.
I can talk about that too.
But I was just thinking about that in preparation for this, and I think there's a lot of confusion around what a system is or isn't.
Definitely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're here to talk about survival to significant systems. You just got done teaching the first transition.
Yeah, we did, and Reconnect last week. It was fun, yeah.
So go back to that quote. When I say that and we think of systems, help me with a framework for what you're meaning and not meaning when we're talking about building better systems.
So going back to the quote specifically, right? You can have these really big aspirations and I want to get there and I can see the path maybe even to try to get there. But to that point, I think if you don't actually put processes and systems in place, it'd be really hard to ever get there. You're going to keep hitting like a ceiling of complexity and not being able to go to that next level, I think, unless you're putting some of the processes in place. And so I think the misnomer, going back to that with the word systems, is that systems are tools. Systems are not necessarily tools. And so that was one of the things that we spent a little time. It's not necessarily the thing. it has to be in a tool. It is a process that other people could then execute. It is ongoing. It can happen repeatedly over and over, and somebody else could then take that process from you and then execute it as well.
I heard duplicatable. I heard maybe sustainable, but also transferable. Like you said, you could pass it on to somebody else. So the word process is what you're leaning on. Are there other words that come to mind? So not tools, but I mean, they certainly can include or use tools. Yeah.
I mean, I think that eventually when you figure out what your process is, tools can definitely help make it smoother and more repeatable, even more repeatable. I think if it can live somewhere in a thing that does it for you. But I think of the word also standard operating procedures. I think of SOPs a little bit in this space, right? Like you have to know start to finish, this is what we do every single time we do this thing.
So this is a very large, I'm going to call it a problem inside of the real estate sales community and world, because we're rugged individuals. We're wound just to go and sell and move, and especially for the first 6 to 12 months and even maybe the first 10 years.
Oh, yeah, you're totally just figuring it out.
Well, we're figuring it out, and we're in a perpetual state of survival in a way.
Yeah.
And we don't have the time or make the time to work on, not in.
Yep.
But when we're working on, a significant portion of that time really is to build these processes, standard operating procedures, the ways we do what we do, so that and it's not even just so that we can pass it on to somebody else. It's so that we're not reinventing the wheel every single time.
Yeah, I liken it to you get the call from the buyer and you have to go to go to your buyer presentation, and you're not going, what do I do? What do I print? What do I say? All of those things should be figured out. You shouldn't be practicing in front of your clients. You should have that stuff figured out.
My insight on that is, I think a lot of people, I'm a high systems guy.
So
I'm a 7 follow through. What's
I'm an
yours?
8.
Yeah. So, and that's your first? Is that your highest number?
An 8.
So both your fact finder and follow through. So we naturally build processes and systems, and not everyone's like that. But I think I love that you said misnomer. The misunderstanding, I think, on systems is that, I don't know, this is complicated or a special thing. I think that everything operates this way. I think that, like, you have a system for how you get out of bed in the morning and how your morning routine.
You're not thinking about it. You just do it.
But at some point you put that together inadvertently or accidentally.
Yeah.
So the problem is we're actually running on a bunch of systems as it is. Some of them
Good
are
or
just
bad.
really bad systems. I mean, when you walk down the hall and someone says hi and you go, hey, and you go, how was your morning? Or how are you doing? And you go, I'm good. That's a system of communication in my mind.
So true.
So yeah, I think that systems are embedded into everything. They're just bad or sloppy.
Right.
And it's, the other struggle here is taking the time to build these feels like a mountain.
Yeah.
It feels like there's so much and it's so big.
Yeah.
And
Where do you start? Like, how do you even just get started, I feel like?
And then the mistake we make is we pick up a few tools here and there thinking that they're going to solve our problem.
Yep.
But what we don't do is step back, do the hard work of actually thinking through, okay, wait, what am I trying to accomplish here for the client or in this process?
Yeah.
And then how have I done this? How do I do this? And how would I want to do this? And how can I just take the time to write out that process to improve it and embed it? And I think the struggle with this is really, really unsexy work.
And maybe, it's my nerdy 8 follow through, because this actually is like fun work for me.
Like this, yeah.
I really do. And I am a figure. Yeah. I mean, even, I don't know. I just think about some of my silly systems, right? It was as simple as having all of my buyer packet pre-printed in like a hanging file folder. I mean, that's not sexy, but I was like, okay, this is silly. I'm reprinting these things every time. I've got to make it a thing that I do. So yeah, I know it's not necessarily fun, but for a nerd like me, I love doing this actually.
Well, I think we got to speak to nerds like you, but also all the other weirdos that exist out there. And maybe that's a good framework to think this through. You've got survival to significance, but you've also got like degrees of crazy, right?
Right.
And so for your systems people, here's how you attack it. And for your
lower follow, your 2 3s, which we have a lot of 2 3 4s in our company for sure, and follow through. Yeah.
It is amazing to me how diverse our portfolio of human beings are and how many of them can thrive in
this space
from such different worlds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to talk through the entire sequence actually of these 3 transitions, because we've got, I think the goal is to teach all of systems this year by the end of the year. Is that right?
We will have taught all of it by the end of the year. Yes.
And a lot of that's already put together. You obviously just did the first transition. And so maybe at the end we can deep dive on that a little bit and talk about what you covered as, what do you call it? The
business
foundations, right?
It really is where you start.
So start with the journey in totality. So going from survival to stability, you call it business foundations. Real quick, what is that about? Where are you guiding people to start?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just about the basics. Like, these are the things, I mean, I hate to say like, these are the things you have to figure out the processes for to even get started, to be able to build upon that structure, upon that framework. So, I mean, I'm just going to list them quickly because I think they are really, truly the foundational things that you have to figure out your processes for. So you have to have a process for your database. You have to have a process for your 5 spokes. You have to know what it is and you have to execute it. You have to have a plan for your presentations, your listing marketing plan, your buyer and seller service plans, transaction management, and a basic business plan. So that sounds huge, but each of those things is really one thing at a time, I think. But without those, and I think we're going to get there too, they don't build upon the structure of what's coming, right? Like, those are just the things you got to start with and start figuring out.
What's fascinating to me, not fascinating, I suppose it's intentional, but maybe in reverse. We've always started with those things.
Oh, completely.
It's, sometimes you realize that you've been running a more intentional system than what you realize. So we didn't have the schematic in place, but when people came in, first thing we did is say, you got to get your database together.
In order. Mm-hmm.
So you could call that genius, or you could call it, well, that's
stumbling into it. It's
just how it needs to work.
Yeah.
Everybody has to figure out these core foundational platforms. It sounds like, because I was looking at this, also you're just getting your schedule structured properly in the first.
The other thing really to go, the picture that I really see in my head to go from survival to stability in this space is going from all over the place, really making things up as you go to, okay, I know what I do in my day. I know I have, space even blocked to build these things, or to look at my database, or follow through on my 5 spokes and do my lead generation and lead incubation plan. Which
in and of itself is a system. Restructuring your week so that you have time blocked for certain elements is your time management system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back to that one, because I think I'd like to deep dive a little bit on what you saw and learned and what you're focusing on there with everyone.
Yeah.
So transition 2 then, from stability to success, what is that all about? And explain maybe the 3 pillars.
Yeah, so we're defining that transition as the 3 pillars intentionally, because you start to see, another way I look at it too is you start to see kind of departments. So you have kind of departments that are running different aspects of the business in your 3 pillars, being your leads, all of your leads systems, all of your transaction systems, and then you really start to have a bunch of marketing systems that you're running as well. So 3 pillars, or sometimes I look at it as 3 departments, and you have things that live, you can kind of see that the things that you originally talked about start to live in these 3 pillars, and then you build on those as well. So yeah, their leads, transaction, and marketing systems live on top of course, what you have is a strategic business plan. It's kind of that foundation that then builds up those 3 pillars.
Well, so several questions emerge. In transition 1, we put together a basic business plan, and then what you're saying here is more of a strategic business plan. Yeah. Can you help me understand what's the difference between those two?
Yeah, I think the basic business plan, it's like, where do you want to go? How much production do you want to do? What are my SWOT analysis? What are my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? And that's really all you need to get started with, just to kind of see where you want to go. The strategic business plan to me is really more looking at each of these areas of your business and getting a little more specific into each of those spaces, as well as you do start to look at other things. I think of our other quadrants, right? You're going to analyze what's happening with your teams, your money, your leads. It's kind of all of those things all together.
The templates that we have for our business plans, those, would you consider those to be in the strategic or the basic category?
Well, all the basic is there, but it really does build more into the strategic space, I think, because of there's so much there.
So much to think through.
But the basic stuff is there first.
That business planning template feels like a choose your own adventure. It's
a lot.
You wouldn't want to do it all, so you want to pick and choose some things that help you ask the right questions for where you're at.
And I think this, honestly, when we were building this structure, helped me see the ways that it maybe breaks down into like the most essential, basic parts of it, and then it can grow from there, because it is very choose your own adventure seeming. Yeah.
So what's the importance of thinking about, if the first transition is about get these core processes together, because there's no way to sell houses without them.
Yes.
You're just going to be winging it.
Yep.
If the second transition is about starting to organize those into these 3 columns or pillars, is there some reason why that's helpful to think of it in those groupings? Or you said departments. Now I'm a one-man standstill.
Yeah.
I might have a team or I might not. Probably it's still just me.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the benefit of thinking in these pillars?
I think, you'll see the trajectory of where we're going next. So it really does help get to that final, start with the end in mind. But to me, this helps you see the important parts of your business. So like, I have all of these things that live within leads that my brain needs to kind of go, okay, specifically in this space, what are the things that I need to be working on? So we have listed, you go back to your 5 spokes, you go back to your database, you think about how much time am I spending incubating, and am I getting ROI on those leads? So it's really just a way to, categorize it, departmentalize.
Organize the chaos in your mind.
Yeah.
It's 2 things popped in my head. No, I can't remember the second, but the first was a puzzle. The first thing you do when you build a puzzle is you turn all the pieces the right side up, and then you
start with the edges.
And you group things so that there's some organization to your process.
Yes.
And so I think in our mind, I remember the second one, it's like an alphabet soup. It's just, everything's just a big mix. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how a lot of real estate agents feel.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's how a lot of business owners feel and entrepreneurs. And so first step is to just create a categorization system of different, I love the word departments, because
I'm just I'm doing a different thinking when I'm thinking through that way.
And if you read the E-Myth Revisited, that is one of the first things. You might be a one-man stand, but at the end of the day, you need to create the org chart for your company and all the different seats that exist, because you on your own have to fill all those respective seats. But until you see the seats, you probably won't allocate time across your week or month or year to sit in each of those seats intentionally and build out what needs to be built out for those. And that's the hard part of building a business is, and I've had to do this. I didn't have departments early on. You just had like 1 or 2 people.
Figured it out, yeah.
Well, that's the game.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the game. And it doesn't matter if where you're going to land in your real estate business is still just you and 1 administrative assistant. You still ultimately have to wear all the hats.
Yes, you do.
And control all these various, maybe departments is a good way. Another way to think of it is just there's different parts of the machine
that have to work.
They have to work. The machine doesn't work if all of those. If you've got your lead management in order, but your transaction management process sucks.
That experience is going to be terrible for your clients. You're not going to continue to fill your top of your funnel. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Okay, so very good. So we move from some core foundational stuff to organizing it and thinking departmentally on top of a slightly more intentional business plan. Yeah. And that's transition 2.
Yeah.
And then I can't wait to get into transition 3 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I know we've been working on this material together. Yeah. So transition 3 then is about really putting together the strategic end of your business. We call it like the C-suite. So explain what transition 3 is about.
And I might throw this one back to you a little bit more, but this one really, we built a house. When you look at the picture, it's kind of ironic that we built a house. So on the top of your strategic business plan, you're now thinking about your business in these 3 areas, these three pillars: leads, transaction, and marketing. You now, on top of that, the capstone to that, right, is your C-suite. So you, and I guess I heard this very early on through Buffini. Now that you are a business owner, whether you like it or not, you are the CEO, the COO, and the CFO of your business. So I keep going back to that picture in my mind as well.
It's powerful. We've been talking that language for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's super helpful.
Yeah, I had no idea when I first heard that was what I was signing up for.
Crap, what did I sign up for?
I'm like, oh, shoot. I don't know if I can do all that. So I love that this journey then brings you to that place where you can really put the 3 strategic hats on, and you can go, okay, I am in the CEO space, even though it's just me. What do I need to be thinking about here in the COO and the CFO? So I might actually throw it back. You explain this really, really well. So when you're putting your CEO hat, kind of what is your main things that you should be thinking about when you're thinking of those?
Well, Buffini defined the CEO as a rainmaker.
Yes.
They're the person that creates the opportunity.
Yep.
And I think that's fundamentally true. Your CEO is your, what
makes it all go? What starts it all, I guess?
The way we define, it's the fearless leader, right? And so you got to be the fearless leader of your company. You got to decide where it's going, where it's headed, what we need to be worried about, what we need to not be worried about. So the strategic CEO is sitting in that strategic business planning meeting.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're running at the head of the table thinking, okay, what are we focused on and what are we not focused on? But the way we've defined the CEOs is they're about people and they're about vision. So they're about knowing where the ship is going and making sure you got the right crew on the ship.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just mean picking them. That means leading them, guiding them, helping them, supporting them. And that might be not just your staff. If you don't have staff, it's certainly also your vendors. It's the team that you work with inside of our walls, your TCs and your ASCs, they're an extension of your team.
Yep.
So the CEO is in charge of where the ship is headed, and again, largely it's about people and vision.
Yeah.
Your CFO, I like to think of them as managing the resources, but I think that's money.
Yep.
I think it's obviously all the data because we don't know how to measure where we're headed and where we need to head.
Improve upon if you don't have the numbers to look at, right?
You have to be measuring. You can't improve what you don't measure.
Yep.
And then our COO is our systems guru, right?
Yeah.
They're there to figure out the plan, the structure, the systems, the processes, and make sure that ultimately what we're delivering as a product is the best viable product for the consumer.
Yeah.
And we're in a giant company. We've got 35 to 40 staff members, a couple hundred agents, and we still don't have CEOs, CFOs, CEOs. I'm the CEO now of Century 21 in a way. We really don't have a CFO. We kind of have a COO in Anna.
Yeah.
My point is these things don't have to be perfectly defined, but they are distinct roles.
Yes.
They're mindsets, and that's why we call them hats. They're 3 strategic hats. And I do think, just like the pillars, every business owner has to intentionalize finding time and space to put that hat on and ask the questions that a good CFO, that a good COO, and a good CEO would be asking.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point of that for me. It's a struggle. I would also say that it's not what we've been coaching our people to do. Right?
Yeah. I think that our intention as we kind of roll out these other transitions too is to help give some resources and guidance just in basic worksheet questions. Like, what should you be asking yourself in this space? Because I think we lack the imagination vision and mission and people. Okay, what do I do?
Yes.
Right. So I think that's our intention when we.
And I can't wait for that stuff to come out because
I'm
it's
excited.
Obviously this is a space I've got to live in for the last 10 years and I'm passionate about it and I can't wait to pass on some of what we've where we've had success.
Yeah.
So is there more on the third transition?
No, I don't think so. I think that we've defined it really well. And I think, again, check out the resource in the Forge, just the overview. It does a really good job of kind of just seeing the picture overall and building it. Yeah.
Ultimately, our goal here is to build a set of systems, which are processes, tools, SOPs, the way we do what we do.
The way we do what we do.
To get to the point that what Michael Gerber in the E-Myth describes as we're at a place where a business is something where the systems run the business and the people run the systems. And so what is going on in 99% of small businesses around the country is that it's about people, it's one or many, frantically running the business.
Yeah.
Reactionary is the way I think about that. And everything's an emergency because everything's the first time we've done anything.
We don't know what we do. Yeah.
But every single closing, every single sale has a closing. Every single sale has a walkthrough. Every single sale has, and every one of those steps has a way that you can first just document what the process is,
yes.
refine the process, and improve the process, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're doing here is slowly, like a tortoise,
yes,
intentionally, one thing at a time, building the bricks that build the house.
Yep.
That creates a space where we now have a business, and a business is when we have a set of processes that define how we do what we do. They can be in a manual. They can be, I don't even care where they're written, but they must have been thought through.
Yeah.
Or what you've got is a person or
who
people
has all the things in their head.
Doing all the things.
Yeah.
And that's not a business.
Yeah.
That's just running around selling stuff.
Yep.
And I think most of you listening can identify with that. We've all been in that space at various times.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want you to think through that. People, we want to get to a place where systems run the business and people run the systems. And when we're there, I think we've won the game because the game never ends.
Constant and never ending
We're winning
improvement.
the game at that point.
Yeah. Something you just said there that kind of makes me link it back here to this business foundations piece is, the steps of the process. I feel like that's one of the first things in real estate specifically you kind of figure out is, okay, this is generally how a buyer plan goes. This is generally how the seller process goes, right? So maybe that is where to start, right? Like a really good starting point would be maybe in those buyer seller service plans. Yes, as a business coach, I'm going to really have you focusing on your database and your 5 spokes as well. But that one seems the most commonsensical to me, to that the process. Start there, start small, start somewhere with that, with your buyer and seller service plans.
Yeah. I mean, go backwards. So we're in business foundations and you're jumping into where to start.
Yeah.
What I heard you say, we've done a pretty good job of forcing people to focus on build out your list of relationships.
Yep.
And if you're not doing that here, you've just not been listening. Mm-hmm. And it's where we've been winning, right?
Yeah.
The same is true with 5 spokes, which is just intentionalize where you're going to be making it rain. There's only so many ways to generate leads.
Yep.
And you just got to create a totem pole of where you're going to actually focus your time based upon your archetypes.
Yep.
And get a slightly small written plan of what you're going to do so that you can hold yourself accountable.
Yep. Focus on where you're going to spend your time, effort, and energy to fill that top.
What I heard you say is we've sort of done that in a way for you.
Yeah.
And you need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And so the best next place might be to just start with your buyer and service, how you guide people through the process. So what's your guidance on how to do that?
I mean, honestly, we have provided really great checklists, right? So for me, I mean, my nerdy paper process has turned into a little, now can fit in a tool and it can be more automated. But for me, first, it was literally just a checklist. Start with the piece of paper and go, okay, this is how I work people through this process. And then, I mean, I think to me, the buyer seller service plans turns into client experience in the long run. So maybe layer that eventually with front stage audit, right?
Okay.
How do we want the client to feel throughout this process? But at first it's just, this is what I do at this point.
Do we have front stage audits that are already kind of pre-populated for the buyer and seller experience process?
We do. The basic levels of it,
Where do those exist?
I think those exist in business planning actually right now.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That seems like a good place to start. If you haven't itemized start there. Itemize your process.
Yep. Which we have places where you can start looking at that. Yeah.
And then each of those steps, there's 6 to 10 to 20 bullet points of how I do what I do. I mean, starting with something as simple as, okay, before every inspection, is there an email I send?
An email. Yep.
How do I handle the introduction? Do I show up? Don't I? But all the way down to how do we handle the conversation on the report? What are the things I need to bring or say at the beginning? again, you already have.
You're doing so much of it.
You probably have somewhat of a system put together.
Yes.
You just haven't been intentional enough to think it through, and you can't improve something that isn't there tangibly for you to improve.
Yeah, and going back to your point as well, right? It has to be documented in some capacity so that, right, a person, maybe somebody else transferable, like they could see it and know what to do too. It has to be kind of out of your head. And I will say that is a realization during teaching this. I think people realize they are potentially further along in some of these than they were. They were overcomplicating it in their head.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Because, all of these things are
not super duper complicated.
They're also not super duper easy.
Yeah.
And I think the lie would be that there's some way to arrive on this.
Yeah.
I'm 20 years into running this business. Every freaking week, it feels like we're starting from like the beginning. But the systems we've got are amazing.
Yeah.
There's always another mountain to climb.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to enter this with a mindset as well. You have to go read Simon Sinek's Infinite Game. This is not a game where there's an end. The buzzer does not go off, and there is no winner or loser. It's a game you're always going to be playing, and you have to decide to love that game and that process, and know that the climb is the fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And the view gets better and better and better, right? As you move.
Yeah.
But I think there's just a mindset that you have to come at this with, because it is overwhelming.
Yes. When you look at it and you're like, okay, Angela, I have to have these 7 things all perfectly figured out. It's like, no, that's not the point.
One thing at a time.
Yes. Start with one thing.
It's like everything else. Once you start, like after you're 3 bites into the elephant,
Yep.
You're like, wait, I can probably get through this.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that you realized, learned, any insights after going through the first transition? So the first you said is a lot of people tend to have whoa, I've actually got this.
I'm further along than I thought I was.
Where I asked this the last time as well, where are we sucking? Where are we not?
I would say, honestly, probably, I feel like a lot of people do a really good job. We do talk about quite a few of these things pretty regularly and within our walls, and we have lots of good resources for you. I would say presentations is probably the one piece that most people still struggle with, and it's from what do I print? How do I have it ready? What do I say? I would say that's the space that when I'm working with our agents is kind of that still like, I have a thing, but what do I say?
Part of that is a system of how we train sales. We train a more consultative approach to the buyer agency presentation, the seller. We train to ask questions and to delve into a consultative space. And we don't train pitch. Yeah. And
so how do you package consultative, I guess?
Which I'm interested to dig into at some point, but because I think that is about being over prepared. Well, it's like what we talked about. There's not being prepared, which means you show up and it's a mess. Yep. And there's being very prepared, but that's where you show up and you follow your script. Yeah. And then there's what I call being super prepared. And being super prepared is where there's a preponderance of information and it's all internalized. You know the data, you know their neighborhood, you know the comps, you know that you've got the CMA, you've got the market absorption, you've got it all. None of it
actually leaves the folder.
Doesn't have to leave the folder. It leaves the folder if and when that part of the conversation comes up. But you have internalized all of that along with all the scripts. Yeah. So there's a super preparedness that I think shows up in presentations if you're really, really good. But I don't think that's where we're at. No. I think we really just haven't organized what we bring on a consistent basis in order to be prepared or super prepared.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think our people generally are really good consultants. I think they are really good at having the conversation and understanding our clients' needs and wants and helping them get there.
Which is better. I'd pick that any day.
100%. But then they look to us and go, okay, so well how do I put that in a thing? Yeah. So I think that's the piece I would look at.
The thing gets in the way, right? If you have this beautiful PowerPoint, it's the thing between you and the beautiful conversation. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's an implicit problem that we have that
we've created.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'd take that as a trade-off. So
Same.
Okay. So when are you covering the second transition? Because here's my sense is that you've done a great job. Our team's done a great job of creating the foundation. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, it'll provide clarity for them, but they're going to have the same reaction. Got this. I think I'm actually doing okay. Yeah. Which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. It feels like transitions 2 and 3 is where the real meat and potatoes is going to show up for people. Yeah. So what's the plan?
For right now, transition 2 is going to be released in June. So stay tuned for the exact date for that. I'm super excited about that. And then I would, if this is something that you missed, or if you're just looking for, like, you know what, I'm actually a little further than I thought I was. I really do think the self-assessment that is a part of this journey, if you go check out Module 1 in the Forge, the assessment was really helpful for a lot of people in the course as well.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. So that they even, like we did share, like kind of the C-suite, the 3 strategic hats, start with the end in mind. People are like, oh, I never really thought about it that way, but I actually do have some more in place even in than I thought I did. So I would say that is where I would recommend going. Stay tuned for the dates in June. Transition 3, TBD-ish. We're maybe changing up how we want to release that first. But yeah, no, stay tuned. It's going to be fun, and check out really the journey, and the self-assessment is a great place to start to get going in this space. Yeah.
These are super cool. It feels like we're on a long, sort of open-ended journey here.
Yep.
It's back to the infinite game.
Yep.
But I love the process of building these out. It's much like what you've said. The realization that agents are having is, whoa, I'm already doing some of this. I'm further than I thought. Really what we're creating here is a framework for people to map their progress and to be able to grab the binoculars and just look over the horizon, over the hill a little bit, to go, here's the next set of things I need to be working towards. Begin with the end in mind is really what we're trying to create here.
Yeah, make it approachable, make it doable. Like, you guys, you can totally do this. Like, I feel like if you say the word systems to most, like, build systems in your business, that seems so big and gray and ethereal.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, I can do that. I can take that one step at a time.
Any other closing advice for everyone that's trying to build a better business and is either overwhelmed or hasn't got started? Like, what's your take on where to go?
I mean, honestly, I'm so excited about all these transition ones. I mean, I think the going from survival to stability, and I think within our walls, we do talk about so much of this stuff all the time that it's just packaged differently. So maybe you can see it more clearly and know where you're going to go. So I don't know, in systems specifically, just get started.
Just start.
Choose one thing and just get started, and then let us know how we can help. There's tons of great resources. We can point you to them to get you started too.
The modules are incredibly clear and accessible. So print those and start.
Yeah.
Love it. Good work. I can't wait to see where these go.
Me too. It's going to be fun. Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about how to build a profitable, sustainable, and enjoyable business, go to morethanmorepodcast.com.